When I gave her our bank password, I didn't do it out of anger. I did it out of peace. The kind that comes when you've finally stopped begging to be loved. That's how it started. The quietest revenge I've ever seen, wrapped in politeness and delivered with a smile. People think revenge comes with shouting, slamming doors, broken plates. Mine came through an email, with the subject line, "You might find this useful." But before that moment, before I pressed send, there was a time when I believed my marriage was unshakable. Daniel and I had been together for 12 years. 12 ordinary, beautiful, exhausting years. We built everything together. A modest home on the edge of town, a little garden that always seemed half dead in the summer heat, and a joint bank account that held more dreams than dollars. He was a project manager at an architecture firm, always talking about deadlines and client calls. I taught English literature at the community college, the kind of job where students forgot your name but remembered your voice. Our mornings had a rhythm. He brewed coffee. I toasted bread. We'd share silence like a comfortable blanket, sometimes speaking, sometimes not. I used to think that silence meant understanding, that two people could simply be together without words. Now I know silence can also hide distance. On Sundays, Daniel would read the paper in the living room while I graded essays at the kitchen table. The sound of the pages turning was comforting. I'd look up, see him in that worn-out t-shirt, glasses perched low on his nose, and feel lucky. We didn't have much, but we had us. Or at least I thought so. He wasn't a bad husband. That's what made it harder to see it coming. He remembered birthdays, sent me flowers to my office sometimes, and still called me babe in public. Not out of habit, but in that easy, effortless way people do when they think they're safe. But love, I learned, can look perfectly fine on the surface while it rots underneath. The first change was so small, it barely registered. He started coming home late. Not every day, just enough for me to notice. "Traffic was awful," he'd say, kissing my cheek before dropping his bag near the couch. I'd nod, pretending not to care, even though my stomach twisted every time his phone buzzed. He'd started guarding it. The phone. Once, I reached for it when it rang while he was in the shower. He shouted from the bathroom, "Don't answer that. It's work." That wasn't like him. Daniel never cared who called. I remember staring at that glowing screen, the contact name hidden under a simple heart emoji. Just a heart, no name, no clue. My chest went cold. When he came out, towel around his waist, his eyes darted straight to the phone in my hand. He smiled too quickly, like someone trying to bury panic under charm. "You're curious now, huh?" he joked, taking it from me gently. "It's just my colleague, Amber. She's been helping me with a big project." Amber. I told myself it was fine. People work late. People have colleagues. People send heart emojis these days, right? Still, I started noticing things I'd never noticed before. The faint trace of perfume that wasn't mine. The way he'd hum in the mornings now, as if something, or someone, had lit a spark in him again. At night, I'd lie next to him, watching the soft rise and fall of his chest, wondering who he texted when I fell asleep first. My mind became a machine of suspicion, running on exhaustion and caffeine, but I didn't confront him. Not yet, because I was still the kind of woman who believed love deserved the benefit of the doubt. One evening, while we were having dinner, takeout sushi, his favorite, I caught him smiling at his phone. That soft, private kind of smile that doesn't belong to anyone else. I watched his thumb hover over the keyboard, then stop when he realized I was looking. "Something funny?" I asked, keeping my voice light. He looked up, startled. "Just a meme from work," he said, locking the phone and setting it face down on the table. "Work is hilarious these days," I murmured, forcing a smile. He laughed, but his laugh was too quick, too sharp. A cover, not a sound of joy. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat in the dark kitchen with my laptop open. I didn't know what I was looking for, only that I needed to know. I scrolled through old photos, our anniversary trips, birthdays, the day he surprised me with a puppy we never got to keep because our landlord didn't allow pets. I was searching for the man I used to know, the man who looked at me like I was the only thing that made sense in his life. But that man was gone, replaced by someone distracted, half present, half somewhere else. The next morning, I noticed he'd left his phone charging on the counter while he took the trash out. I hesitated only a moment. My heart pounded as I opened it. No passcode change. A relief. I went straight to messages, and there she was. But the conversation was weeks long. I scrolled until my hands trembled. Sweet nicknames, secret plans. Last night was perfect. I can still smell your perfume on me. And one that broke me completely. I wish she'd stop asking questions. It's getting hard to pretend. I remember the taste of salt in my mouth. I didn't even realize I was crying until a tear hit the screen. When Daniel walked back in, I closed the phone, set it on the counter, and forced a smile. He didn't notice anything. He kissed my forehead and said, "I'll be home late tonight. Big client presentation tomorrow." I nodded. "Of course, Daniel. Go impress them." But inside, something in me had gone very, very still. The kind of stillness that comes before a storm. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the faint hum of the air conditioner filling the silence. I thought about every sacrifice I'd made for this marriage, the job offers I turned down, the years I carried his emotional baggage, the gentle understanding I offered when he said he was too tired to talk. And I thought about Amber. Probably younger, maybe freer, definitely new. He had given her his time, his laughter, his desire, so I decided I'd give her something back, something of ours, our shared bank password. The morning after I found those messages, the world looked ordinary, almost insultingly so. The sun still came through the blinds. The kettle still whistled. Daniel still kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work. Only I knew that nothing was ordinary anymore. I stood by the window, watching him back out of the driveway. His car disappeared around the corner, and I stayed there a long time, holding my coffee mug in both hands until it went cold. When trust breaks, it doesn't explode. It seeps. Quietly, relentlessly. Every sound, every word, every familiar detail becomes evidence of a lie. That day, I went through our shared life like an investigator, not a wife. The drawers, the shelves, the desk in his little home office, all of it became a crime scene. I wasn't looking for more proof of his affair. I already had it. I was looking for clarity. I needed to understand the kind of man he really was. Inside the drawer, beneath old receipts and half-dead pens, I found something unexpected. A printed bank statement. Not our regular account, a new one, under his name only. It wasn't hidden exactly, just tucked away. My breath caught when I saw the balance. He'd been moving money, thousands, out of our shared account every month for nearly half a year. It wasn't about the amount. It was about the deception. That's when my anger went cold. Not hot, not loud, just cold. The kind of anger that sharpens instead of burns. I opened my laptop, logged into our shared bank account, and stared at the numbers. The savings I'd contributed to every payday. The account we said was for our future. Vacations, a new car, maybe a baby someday. All those dreams wrapped neatly in digits and decimals he had taken from that account. So had I, but for different reasons. I had built, he had betrayed. That was when the idea came. Simple, absurd, dangerous. If he wanted to share himself with her, I'd let him. Completely. I didn't act right away. Revenge, I believe, shouldn't be impulsive. It should be precise. For 3 days, I played the part. Smiled when he came home. Asked about his work. Cooked his favorite meals. It wasn't difficult. I'd been pretending for weeks already. On the 4th night, as he showered, I sat at the dining table and wrote a short email. Just one line. You might find this useful. Dee and I share everything. Below it, I typed the password to our joint account. Then I attached a screenshot. The balance glowing in blue numbers, and in the recipient line, I typed her email address. I had seen it once on his phone when he asked me to proofread something. When I hit send, my hands didn't shake. It wasn't rage. It wasn't justice, it was balance. I didn't want to expose them. I wanted to free them from the illusion they'd built together. I wanted to see what love looked like when the money entered the equation. The first sign that something had happened came 2 days later. Daniel came home early. Too early. His face was pale, his jaw tight. He walked straight past me, didn't say hello, went into his office, and slammed the door. Through the thin walls, I heard the muffled sound of him shouting into his phone. "Amber, what the hell did you do?" My heart thudded. I turned down the TV volume just enough to hear, "Don't play dumb." "You think I wouldn't notice?" The account. "You took everything." A pause. Then quieter, almost defeated. "Amber, I trusted you." I stood there in the hallway, barefoot, still holding the remote. My mouth went dry. It had worked. He came out 10 minutes later, shoulders heavy, his face flushed with disbelief. "Everything okay?" I asked, tilting my head, keeping my voice soft. He blinked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "No," he said slowly. Someone hacked our bank account." I raised my brows. "Oh no, did the bank call you?" He shook his head, rubbing the back of his neck. "No, I just noticed the transfer. It's all gone. To some random account. I wanted to ask, random or familiar, but I didn't. Instead I said, 'That's awful, Daniel. Should we go to the bank tomorrow?'" He nodded numbly. "Yeah, I'll handle it." That night, he barely touched his dinner. His phone kept buzzing, but he ignored it. By the time he went to bed, he looked like a man who'd aged 10 years in a day. And I felt nothing. Just quiet. The next few days unfolded like a slow-motion collapse. Daniel became withdrawn. He barely spoke to me. He was constantly on the phone with the bank, trying to trace the transfer. I overheard enough to know the money was unrecoverable. It had been willingly transferred, not stolen. Amber must have realized the gift she'd been given and decided to take her share of the fantasy while it lasted. By the end of the week, Daniel confessed the truth. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the same one where we used to drink morning coffee together. His voice was hoarse. "I have to tell you something," he said, not meeting my eyes. I folded my hands. "Okay." He hesitated, swallowed hard. "There's someone, or there was. It's over now. She took the money and ran." I looked at him, really looked at him. The man who once promised me forever. Now, just a hollow shell of guilt and loss. "I see," I said quietly. He blinked, confused. "That's all you're going to say?" "What else is there to say, Daniel? You made your choices. Now you're living their consequences." He looked at me, searching for anger, for tears, for something. But I had none left to give, because the truth is, when someone betrays you like that, the pain doesn't stay sharp. It dulls into clarity. That night, as he sat in silence at the dining table, I went to the bedroom, packed a small suitcase and wrote a note. "Don't call me. Don't follow me. I don't want explanations. Only peace." Then I walked out into the night, the air heavy with the scent of rain. For the first time in months, I felt light. He had lost money. I had lost illusions. Both of us had been robbed, but only one of us was free. When I left the house that night, I didn't have a plan. Just a duffel bag, a few clothes, and my dignity. The one thing Daniel hadn't managed to spend. I drove to my sister Leah's place on the other side of town. Her porch light was still on, flickering the way it always did when she forgot to fix it. She opened the door in her robe, half asleep, and froze when she saw me standing there with swollen eyes and shaking hands. "Amira?" she whispered. "What happened?" I didn't answer. I just said, "Can I stay here for a few days?" She nodded without another question. That's the thing about sisters. They don't need full sentences to understand heartbreak. The first few days were strange. I went through them half awake, like someone watching her own life from outside a window. Leah tried to keep things normal, cooking breakfast, dragging me to the grocery store, insisting I take walks with her dog. But even the simplest things felt foreign. When I checked my phone, Daniel's messages filled the screen. "Please, just talk to me. You don't understand what she did. I can fix this, Amira. Please." Each one chipped away at my numbness, but I didn't reply. Not once. A week later, he showed up at Leah's house. I saw his car from the window before he knocked. My stomach twisted. Leah went to the door before I could stop her. "Amira doesn't want to see you," she said firmly, her arms crossed. He tried to look past her. "Please, Leah, I just want 5 minutes. She won't even let me explain." Leah didn't move. "You had years to explain, Daniel. You didn't use them." He sighed, ran a hand through his hair. He looked worn down. The confident, well-kept man I married had been replaced by someone smaller, quieter. When he finally caught a glimpse of me behind Leah, our eyes met. There was guilt there, but also something else. Shame, maybe, or realization. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but I shook my head once. Slowly. He understood. He left without another word. 2 months passed. I found a small apartment near campus and started teaching again. My students never knew the story, but they must have sensed something. Maybe in the way I smiled a little too tightly or hesitated before mentioning husband in examples. I was learning to live alone again, rediscovering the quiet rhythms that used to be mine before Daniel filled every corner of my life. But news travels fast in small towns. One morning, Leah sent me a screenshot of a social media post, Amber, or rather what was left of her online life. She'd posted a long, tearful message about being betrayed by a man who lied about everything. She claimed he'd promised her a future, that she'd believed him when he said his marriage was over. She said he'd reported her to the police for theft. My lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile, so that was how it ended for them. Public, messy, loud. Daniel, the man who cared so much about appearances, was now the center of a scandal that everyone whispered about in the office corridors and family group chats, and I didn't have to lift a finger. A week later, I received a call from an unknown number. I ignored it twice before curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then, "It's Daniel." My breath caught, but I said nothing. "I'm not calling to ask you back," he continued. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I stayed silent. "She took everything," he said quietly. "The money, my reputation, my job. The firm let me go last week. They said they didn't want the bad publicity." He exhaled shakily. "You know what the funny part is? I can't even be angry at her. I was the fool who believed I could have both, comfort and excitement. You saw it coming, didn't you?" I finally spoke. "I didn't see it coming, Daniel. I felt it, long before I had proof." He was quiet. Then softer. Did you send her the password?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted to lie, to say no, but there was no point. "Yes," I said calmly. "I did." There was a long silence on the line. I could almost hear him nodding slowly. "I thought so," he murmured. "It makes sense now." He didn't yell, didn't accuse, just sighed. "You always were smarter than me." I closed my eyes. Not smarter, just done pretending. After that call, I expected to feel guilty, but I didn't. Not even a little. Because revenge, when it's deserved, doesn't rot your soul. It cleans it. It gives you back the space that betrayal once occupied. Still, part of me wondered what would happen to him, whether he'd rebuild, whether he'd learn, whether karma would stop at his doorstep or follow him a little longer. But those thoughts didn't stay long. I had a new life to build. By spring, I'd moved into a better apartment. I started hosting small dinners for my colleagues, laughter echoing through rooms that had once been silent. I planted herbs on my balcony and took up painting again. I was learning how to exist without bitterness. One afternoon, while I was grading papers, an envelope slid under my door. No name, no return address. Inside was a check, half the amount that had been in our joint account, and a note. "For your peace. You deserve it." I sat there for a long time staring at it. I didn't cash it. I didn't tear it up either. I just placed it in a drawer, a quiet symbol that sometimes even broken people try to make things right. Leah and I joked later that if karma were a person, she'd be a middle-aged woman sipping tea, watching quietly as people destroyed themselves. And I realized she was right. I hadn't ruined Daniel. I'd simply shown him his reflection. He and Amber had written their own ending. I just handed them the pen. It's strange the way healing sneaks up on you. You don't wake up one morning and feel whole again. It happens in fragments. A laugh that doesn't feel forced. A night when you sleep without replaying old memories. A moment when you realize his name no longer stings. For me, it started 6 months after everything collapsed. I was sitting in a cafe, grading papers, when a man at the next table spilled coffee on his own laptop. I handed him a few tissues and we both laughed. A small, harmless moment. The kind you forget by the next day. But as I walked out, I caught myself smiling, not because of him, but because I realized it was the first time in months I'd smiled for no reason at all. That's when I knew. The ache was softening. Healing didn't mean forgiving Daniel right away. It meant forgiving myself, for not seeing it sooner, for staying too long, for loving someone who mistook my kindness for weakness. For a long time, I replayed every scene from our marriage, trying to spot the exact moment the cracks appeared. Was it the late nights, the distant stares, or the way he stopped asking how my day was? But eventually, I stopped asking those questions, because sometimes the moment doesn't matter. What matters is that you chose yourself after years of choosing someone who wouldn't. The small apartment became my sanctuary. I filled it with soft light, secondhand books, and quiet music. I cooked for one, not out of loneliness, but out of peace. My students began noticing changes too. I started sharing stories with them, not about betrayal, but about resilience. How sometimes the people who break you are the same ones who force you to rebuild stronger. One student, a shy girl named Noor, stayed after class one day. She said, "Miss, you always talk about strength, but how do you find it when everything hurts?" I smiled. "You don't find it," I told her. "You build it, one quiet decision at a time." Occasionally, I still crossed paths with Daniel. Small town, shared circles. Once, at the grocery store, I saw him standing in the aisle, comparing brands of coffee. He looked thinner, older, but calmer. When he noticed me, he gave a faint nod. Not of guilt, but of recognition. I returned it. That was enough. We didn't need words. We were two people who had once loved each other deeply and destroyed that love just as deeply. What could possibly be said that hadn't already been lived? Later that evening, Leah asked, "Would you ever take him back?" I laughed softly. "Take him back? No. But I don't hate him anymore." She looked surprised. "After everything?" I shrugged. Hate ties you to people just as much as love does. I've had enough of both. One weekend, while cleaning out old drawers, I found a memory box from our early years. Ticket stubs, postcards, little notes we used to leave on the fridge. I sat on the floor, flipping through them, waiting for the sadness to hit. It didn't. Instead, I felt gratitude. Strange, quiet gratitude for the lessons buried in all that heartbreak. Daniel taught me what betrayal feels like. Yes. But he also taught me what self-respect looks like when it finally wakes up. I took one of the old notes, the one where he'd written, "You're my forever." I folded it neatly, placed it back in the box and whispered, "You were my lesson." Then I closed the lid. The next morning, I made myself breakfast, pancakes and strong coffee. As the sunlight poured into the kitchen, I realized something beautiful. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I wasn't the woman whose husband cheated. I was the woman who survived it, and came out softer, not bitter. There's a power in that, because when you stop letting betrayal define you, it loses its teeth. Months later, a message popped up in my inbox. It was from an unknown address. "I heard you're doing well. I'm glad. Take care of yourself." I didn't reply. Not out of pride, but because there was nothing left to say. Some stories don't need epilogues. Instead, I opened a blank document on my laptop and began writing. Not about Daniel or Amber, but about the quiet kind of revenge that heals instead of destroys. It was the first time I wrote my story, this story, in full. And as I typed the last line, I realized I wasn't writing for him. I was writing for the woman I used to be, the one who sat in the dark, trying to make sense of betrayal. I wanted her to know she'd make it out, that peace would come, not as fireworks, but as morning light through an open window. Now, Whenever I talk to someone who's been through heartbreak, I tell them this. Don't chase closure. Don't wait for an apology that may never come. Don't plot revenge that will only poison you. Just step aside. Life has a way of balancing the scales for you. Sometimes all you have to do is give the mistress the password. Sometimes the hardest goodbyes are the quiet ones, the ones without shouting, without closure, without a door slamming. Just two people walking away from the wreckage they built together. I didn't destroy Daniel's life. I simply handed him the truth in a way he couldn't ignore, and maybe that's what karma really is. Not punishment, but reflection. These days, I still think about that woman I used to be, the one who believed love could fix everything. I wish I could tell her that love shouldn't have to fix you. It should help you grow, and if it ever starts shrinking your world, it's time to walk out and let peace take its place. So tell me, if you found out your partner betrayed you, would you walk away quietly, or would you let karma do the talking? Let me know what your heart says in the comments below. And if my story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because somewhere out there, another heart needs this reminder too.